everyone, it's Michelle. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I am so excited to teach this class to you. You may know me from my two different loves, polymer clay or paper. If you know me through paper, then you probably follow me on Instagram at Tape and Twine. If you know about my clay, then you probably have taken a class or followed my feed at Creative Cottage Studio. But whether you're a clay person or a paper person, this class is for you. I am so excited to offer you a free class in how to make DIY beautiful image transfer ornaments. Now, this is going to give you options for gifts, tags, ornaments for your tree, home decor. It's all about getting creative. And I'm really thought it was important to speak to my two sides, and I wanted to give you something that was free, that you probably had almost everything you needed for this class. And I also wanted to give you a class that you could do with other people, whether it be friends or family. You could even invite people to Zoom and do it with you. This is something that will help you get ready for the holiday season and maybe give you just a great creative outlet. It also doesn't cost a lot of money, so anybody who's kind of trying to save their pennies this year, you can make gifts with this, you can make your own home decor with this, and all it's going to cost you is a little bit of clay. Everything else I've tried to keep to supplies that you may already have around the house. So before we start, let me do a little housekeeping and tell you more about today's project. So when the whole pandemic happened in March and we closed down, I wanted to offer people a class and something to work on this year, and I did a image transfer on polymer clay, and that video has taken off, and I've received so much incredible feedback about that project that I thought, let me do a second part of that project, except let's do it with the holiday. So for all of you that have really been excited about starting doing projects in polymer clay and using your paper love, this gives kind of a second part to that video. So I'm going to link that below if you want to go back and see the projects I did before with the same technique. So I thought I really want to offer something for Christmas, and I talked to one of my favorite digital artists, Sharon at Mad Paper Crush, and I asked her, would you like to collaborate with me? Because I really want to do this class, but I want to offer the images for free. And she said, I'm on board. She has this beautiful digital package called Bounty that's coming out. And actually, by the time this video is out, it probably is out, and I'll have those links below in the box so you can check that out. But she designed a kit for free for us to use. That's right, free. So again, you don't have to do hardly anything to get ready to do this class with me. So she's designed a kit that you can use basic cookie cutters or a craft knife to make the shapes in clay. And all you have to do is go to her link, which she will have through her Instagram feed in her bio. So, and I will have that link as well in this box. Again, everything you need will be in the information box below. You will click that link, you can download this sheet, and then you'll be ready to go, and we'll be ready to start this class. So I want to say a big shout out to Sharon at Mad Paper Crush, and I love the images. Bountiful is about celebrating the blessings we have, and the blessings I have is a lot of friendship within this creative community, and you are a blessing as well. So I hope that you're going to join us today to make this really great project. Okay, let's get started. Let's first talk about what you're going to need for today's class, which hopefully you will have most of everything you need already. So this little list is what you need. So I'm going to hold it up to the screen just for a second so you can either pause it and write it down, or you can screenshot it, whatever it is you need. And then we will go over exactly what's needed for today's class. So the first thing that you're going to need is polymer clay. Now, polymer clay comes in many different brands, but I'm recommending Sculpey for this project only because it's nice and soft. It's great for beginners, and it's easy to roll and do what we need to do. You can also do a brand, like a store brand, like Michael's brand. As long as you are using an actual polymer clay, that is fine. This is what a 2-ounce brick looks like. It's sold for a couple of dollars in the craft store or online. I would recommend at least 4 ounces for this project. So we're talking about probably less than $5 or around $5 to start this project. Now, if you want to do, and I'm showing it to you in tan, I would say white. I don't have any white in the 2-ounce, that's why I'm showing you tan. But get it in white. You could also get it in the pearlescent, which is a really beautiful little glimmer to it, like a little sparkle to it. I would not recommend any that already have glitter in it because the texture will not work well with this project. So just pure Sculpey or polymer clay. If you think you're going to want to make a bunch of these, you can get white original Sculpey in a 3-pound box like I have here, or a 1-pound box. With a coupon at a craft store, it's quite affordable. So this 3-pound box probably costs about $20, but then if you have a 50% coupon, just think about how much clay you could get for this project and many more projects to come. When you buy it in bulk, it will come looking like this. Now, it says it's white. It's a little bit off-white, just to be fair, but that's okay. It works well with this project. So polymer clay is the main thing you need to have with this project. The second thing you need to have is a laser printer. This process I'm going to show you only works with a laser printer. Now that means if you don't have one, find someone who does. Maybe maybe your work has it and they'll let you print off the one sheet. Maybe a friend has a laser printer. Maybe you can go down to the local office station and just bring the file and they can print it off for you. But it has to be laser printer because that's how the ink gets transferred. There is a way to transfer inkjet to polymer, but you will have to find a video on that process because it is not the same as this one. So just make sure it's a laser printer. So you need to have a laser printer and polymer clay. And of course, you are going to need the download that Sharon is providing us. And again, I'll have that link below. This download already has everything to make it as easy as possible to do this project. You can be as beginner level is in polymer clay and do this project. So after you have your clay and your download, and you've printed that on a laser printer, the other things you'll need a rolling pin. I recommend acrylic or hard plastic because with polymer clay, there is a certain amount of oil and it's very hard to get it out of wood. So I would say a non-porous rolling pin is important. If you don't have one, you can use a piece of cut PVC piping. I use that in all my classes. I just get it from the hardware store and cut it in a couple places, and I have a great roller. And if you're doing this with a group of friends, go out and buy, you know, a 1 or a 2-inch PVC piping and then just cut it up. After the rolling pin, you'll need either cookie cutters that we all may have, or you can use a craft knife or something with a very sharp edge, and you can just cut those shapes out. Sharon has provided us borders, which makes it very easy to cut. You'll also need super fancy tools like a drinking straw, which actually could be hard to find these days, but I still have some from when my kids were little. and a toothpick. These should be no-brainers in your house. And then the last thing that I always recommend, and if you think you're going to do this project more than once, then I would say invest in it. You will use it a million times with polymer clay, is a ceramic tile. And buying some in a few sizes gives you lots of options. Now, you may have tiled your bathroom or a room in your house and you have a couple extra tiles left over. If you do, go grab them now. They are invaluable when it comes to polymer clay. They're the best surface to work on and the best surface to bake on. So you can either go down to the hardware store, the big box store, and buy 1 or 2 tiles. Or if you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, I don't wanna invest any money in this, then just get a piece of parchment paper, tape it down with masking tape on your table, and work on that parchment paper. And then when you're ready to bake, you'll transfer that parchment paper right to the baking sheet. While polymer clay is very safe and non-toxic, we don't recommend you using it on your actual cookie sheets and then using them for cookies. So putting the parchment under not only protects the base of your polymer clay, but keeps your pans all nice and food safe. If you have a tile, then it doesn't matter because you're doing everything in one spot. So again, those are the basic things you need. You need polymer clay, a rolling pin, craft knife or cutters, a toothpick and a straw, a ceramic tile or parchment paper, your free ornament download, and a laser printer. So now that we have that out of the way, let's begin. So I'm going to give you lots of tips for the absolute beginner because I'm going to assume you're all absolute beginners, even if you're not. And I'm going to tell you a few handy tips for polymer clay success. The same tips that I talk about in my class, which is first, you always want to prep your surface. You always want to wipe it down first, which I already did off camera, with a like you can use a disinfectant wipe, which I know we all have these days, or you can use some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel. And the reason being is polymer clay is a dust and oil magnet. And even if your surface looks clean, I can guarantee you, if you're wearing a fuzzy sweater, or your hair's not pulled back, or you have a pet nearby, something's gonna end up in that polymer clay. So that's why we clean our surface first, and then we do a hand clean. The best way to clean your hands to get ready for polymer clay is to get some hand sanitizer, which again, I know we all have right now. And the reason we do this is because it has alcohol in it, and that alcohol will strip our hands of the oil that we'll get in the polymer clay. And we make a nice thick layer of hand sanitizer, and then we immediately wipe it off. We don't let it dry. We're just wiping it off, and we're wiping off all the oils and any dirt and things that we cannot see, that we will see in our clay after, off. Then what we do is we can never just work with our polymer clay as is. We need to condition it. Conditioning it means that we need to essentially knead it to activate those polymers. Now, activating the polymers is a really important part of success with polymer clay. The 2 areas that I would say are the most important for polymer clay success is conditioning it and how you bake it. If you take the time to condition it, you're going to alleviate a lot of problems that you can have with polymer clay. So the way I condition it is I just simply roll it into a log, roll it into a ball, then a log, then I bend it in half, and I twist it, and then I roll it again, and I do this 3 times. This will make your clay nice and soft, and you want it soft. You do not want it squishy. If it gets too sticky and squishy, throw it in the fridge for a few seconds until it gets back to the soft part, because if you have sticky clay, you are not going to like the result. Okay, so now I have a ball. I'm going to take this ball and I'm going to roll it out. Now, let me tell you what we can do with this great digital that Sharon made for us. We can make Christmas ornaments, which is what I'm going to make right now. Or we can make book plates. We can make gift tags to hang on things. We can make all sorts of fun things. But knowing what you're making ahead of time tells you how thick to roll it. So in this case, I'm making an ornament. I want that ornament to be able to stand up on the tree nice and thick. So I'm going to make sure that it's at least, I'm going to put that at like 1/8 of an inch. That's what I'm going to guess it is. That gives it enough, it'll be sturdy enough hanging on the tree. It won't weigh too much, but it will stand up well. And you want to make sure when you're rolling that it is the same thickness everywhere. You don't want it to be thick in this area and thin in this area, because when you cut out your ornament, just like Christmas cookies, you'll have a thick cookie in this part and a thin one this way. Another little tip I have is you can use these acrylic blocks that you use for rubber stamping, and you can roll out a ball and then press this out, and that will sometimes make it easier for people to get that same thickness. Okay, I forgot we need one more thing. One more thing I'm sure you have, and that is water. So let me go get the water. Okay, I'm back. I brought just a little tiny dish of water, and if you watched my other clay transfer video, then you'll know what's happening right now, and maybe you'll want to fast forward ahead, or maybe you'll want to do it with me just to make sure you remember all the steps. Okay, so what you do is you cut out each one of the images that Sharon offered for us, and I'm going to start with my favorite, which is this cardinal. And I'm going to actually cut it a little bit closer to the leaves, just so that it doesn't impede my cookie cutter when it's time to cut. Okay, really love this image. I love the bird, and I love the way the holly is. And for a lot of us, cardinals kind of represent someone who's passed and is visiting us. So this is also a really great ornament as a memorial ornament, or for somebody who just suffered a loss. It reminds us that our loved ones are always with us. So you have your clay, you have your image. You want to take your image and put it face down like that. And then you're going to take your water, and you're just going to get a little water on your fingertip, and you're going to start tapping. Now, as I mentioned in my other video, this can be a little bit tedious, and it can take a little bit of time. And it's very, very tempting just to put a lot of water on your finger and just say, I'm going to speed up the process, and I'm just going to take a lot of water and I'm going to just smush it all around. But when you do that, you risk blurring the image. You risk making a wrinkle in the paper, which will translate onto your clay. You also risk missing part of the pattern. So this, it's like the devil is in the details, right? So this is really where the success of the image takes place, is the time you take doing the tapping and making sure that you're getting every part. And as you can see on the back of the image, I'm seeing where it's coming through, which means that's what you want to see. It's like, I don't know if any of you put on those tattoos on your skin when you were a little kid, and it was the same process. You would put it on your skin, and then you would get I think you would get your skin wet, and then you'd put it on, and then you'd tap from the back. And you could tell it was done when you could see the full image through on the other side. It's the same process. The difference is those images had ink on them that were ready to transfer. We are tricking the paper into releasing the ink. So we just have to spend a little bit more time being very, very consistent with our tapping and making sure that we get every single piece. If there's a little bit of white, which I can see here, that means that that ink is not going to transfer. So after you think you have the whole entire thing down, you're going to just keep on tapping. And you might add just a little bit extra water anywhere where you see white, just to make sure. Now, I did a test run with these images, and there's a lot of details in them. So I like to remove the paper before I bake, only because I want to make sure the image is clean and good before I waste that clay. If it's not good, I can reuse that clay and do it again. But sometimes when an image is this delicate, you may choose to bake it with the paper on. That will ensure that you will get more of the image on your clay, but it's a little bit more work after it's baked if you do it that way. So here is our image. I believe it's been a successful transfer because I can see the entire thing through the paper. I can also see that there's no wrinkles, and at this point I can rub it. I'm not going to be destroying or moving the image now. And you can slowly start rubbing away the paper, or you can get your toothpick and try to lift it up. And I can see I still need a little bit more work on these leaves. Because these are such delicate images, I'm going to choose to have them bake with the paper on. But what I am going to do is slowly with my finger rub away some of the paper. Just so there's less to get off after the baking is done. This might be a little bit different than my last video, which I definitely pulled everything off, but I did not have as many delicate features, which is a big part of why I'm choosing to do this way. Then you'll rub the paper away, and you can finish rubbing that paper off once it's baked, so don't worry about that. You're going to rub all that off. And then you're going to find a cookie cutter for the shape and the size that you want to cut it. Now, this is a very important part. You're going to want to hang your ornament. That means that you're going to need a hole in your ornament. So if you want to put the hole above the wreath, you're going to have to cut it bigger than what I'm going to cut it. I'm going to actually cut into the wreath, and I'm going to be okay with that. I'm just going to line it up and center it. And then I'm going to cut that out. Then I'm going to take my straw, and it depends how you want it to hang. I think I want it to hang this way. So I'm going to put the straw, I just cut a little piece of the straw off. I'm going to put that in. Notice I left some space here. You don't want to put the hole too close to the edge, or else you run the risk of that breaking when you try, that it's going to be too thin once it's cooked. And you just spin and pull out, and then you have a perfect circle. So we have our first ornament here, and that's really as easy as that's all you have to do. I'm going to put it aside. You don't have to condition it each time because it's conditioned, But you do have to, I'll show you this technique with the, if you don't have a cutter, this is a great way to do a perfect circle. Again, you can see how thick. Now look at it, got a little bit of ink in it. I'm not sure how, but this is what I mean when I say it picks everything up. Just dig that out. Now here's a very typical thing that happens after you've rolled it in a few times and conditioned it a few times. It's very common that you can get a bubble, and those bubbles will ruin the surface of your baked project, and they will sometimes pop in baking. So I have a needle tool here and I'm popping them, but you can just do it with your toothpick, and then you just sort of press that bubble out, and then we smooth it with your roller. I can see another little bubble right there. That probably won't affect me because it's probably outside my cutting space, but you want to make sure your surface is smooth. Now, if you see any kind of imperfection in your surface or any dirt, you can simply clean it up by taking a Q-tip and some rubbing alcohol, dipping it in, and then just cleaning up the little area. Sometimes I wonder if putting down just a little bit of rubbing alcohol, just a little, because we don't want to ruin the surface of our clay, would help the transfer go easier. Let's give that a shot and see what happens. I'm going to do this fir tree, which I absolutely love, and I love the little variegated areas. I'm going to put that down, and I'm going to tap. While I've only ever done the transfer with water, I do know that rubbing alcohol and polymer have a special relationship. So let's see if this makes any difference to our transfer. Now, I feel like the border is so delicate here. I really don't want to risk peeling this up. So I'm going to do the same thing where I start rubbing off that top layer of paper. It's going to mean a little bit more work when it comes out of baking, but when it comes down to getting these details, that's really important to me. Sharon has chosen some really beautiful images for us to work with, and I want to make sure that we keep all of it. Now, what I'm seeing is I feel like that alcohol may have really made that little extra push of getting those details off, and the clay, I'm able to rub away all of the paper, which, believe me, rubbing it off after you bake is a lot more work than this. Wow, that's a great image transfer. Now, the negative of rubbing is you can sometimes really... Sorry about my dogs. Live taping at home, dogs and deliveries. Okay, back to our project. So I'm going to try to peel this up so you can see it. The image transfer is amazing on this one, but you can see where I was rubbing, I might have marked up some of the clay a little bit. So you can simply smooth that out by taking that rubbing alcohol again. Be careful not to touch the image. and just put a little bit down around there and then smooth it out. Rubbing alcohol is essentially stripping the top, but it's an easy way to just smooth that out a little bit. I actually don't mind a little bit of natural texture. It makes the clay look a little bit more, you know, like rustic. So now I'm going to center that like I did the last one. Now with the tree, this is the only image of Sharon's that's centered at the top. So just know that if you put your straw hole right there, you may take the top of your tree off. So what I'm going to do with this one, actually I want to trim that top a little bit. I'm a little bit crazy when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like, okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take an eye pin, which a lot of us have if we're crafters just for other projects. And I'm just going to press it into the center so that there's a way to hang that ornament afterwards. Okay, so then we have 2 done. I'm going to speed it up and do a couple more. And you can watch how I'm going to do it with that same alcohol down first, just because I want to see if that helps really take that image transfer to the next level and makes it easier for us to wipe away the excess paper. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll touch back with you when I'm done. And voila, here they are. I've decided to keep a couple with the paper on just so that we can see what that looks like when they come out of the oven. So let's put them in the oven now. So as I mentioned before, baking is so important to how well your project turns out. With polymer clay, every brand has a different temperature that they bake at, so make sure you look at your brand and the directions on their packages. With Sculpey, it is 275 degrees, and it's supposed to cook for 15 minutes for every 1/4 inch. Well, these ornaments are definitely not more than a 1/4 inch, so we are going to cook them for 15 minutes in the oven. Baking on the tile makes it super easy. You just transfer them right into the oven, and then when we take them out, we're going to do a very special tip in order to get them ready for working on. So our ornaments are out of the oven, and my very special tip is in order to make our ornaments hard, you want to take the ornaments when they're first out of the oven and still very bendy and submerge them in ice water. Within a few seconds, they'll be hard as a rock. Another note, as far as keeping the paper on, not a great result. As the paper dried, it warped and shrunk and actually made our clay curve towards the paper as it was drying. So the way that my solution of what I did is when it was still kind of wobbly when we took it out of the oven, I flipped it over and then put something very heavy on top of it and let it cool naturally with the hard thing on top, and it straightened out. But it was an unforeseen result of cooking with the entire paper on. So know if you do that, you will have to deal with warped objects when they come out of the oven, and you'll have to figure out how to flatten them. So let's try to get all the paper, or as much as the paper, off before we bake them. Okay, so here we are. We have our ornaments. They are cooked. They look very dark in this lighting because the sun has shifted. It is almost December in New England, and the light, I only get really good morning light. But when you're up close and in person, there's a lot more detail than you're seeing right here. I'm very impressed with how much of the detail came on the transfer. Now, if you saw in the video just now, we took them out of the oven. If you just want to put them on the top of your oven and cool, that's totally fine. It will probably take a complete hour or so for them to really cool down for you to work with. So you could do one step one day, put them on the counter, and the next day they'll be ready to go. But if you want to speed things up, you can do the ice water trick, which is the easiest way to get your items cooled down quickly. And there has been some discussion in the clay world that by doing that, the ice seizes the clay, it makes it pull together, thus making little air bubbles and everything else kind of dissipate, and it's actually a stronger product. So you're not going to hurt it. If anything, you might make your project slightly stronger. Now, a couple more things I want to say about handmade items is that there's going to be variances between each one because you are a person, you're not a machine. You can't make and control every element the exact same way every time you make something. So there are going to be imperfections. There may be little smudges. There may be a little scratch where your fingernail went in. All of this is fine because we are going to take this to the next level anyhow, and all of that will disappear. This guy right here was from my original run, and as you can see, there's so much I love about this piece, and it was not perfect. So take these pieces, cool them down, and then we're going to work with them one-on-one. Now, the key after they come out of the oven is inspecting them for any paper residue. Now, I did a couple trials just to kind of show a couple things to you. This this flower, when I peeled it up, I took off a good deal of the ink. It wasn't set properly. But rather than throwing it out, I just cut a flower off another one and put it over and tapped it and let it bake this way. Now I'm going to peel it off. And it's not lined up 100%, but I kind of like the light and the dark, and I'm going to work with this. And we're going to see how this turns out in the end. But just to show you, just don't give up. And clay, I always tell my students, there's a way to fix everything. Let's try this one. This one I cooked completely with the paper on as an experiment. Now, one other thing, because some people might be really nervous to rub this off. So what happens if you cook it with the paper on? Well, I think what we saw is when the paper dried, it started pulling the clay and warping it. So it's probably not ideal, but when it came out of the oven, it was still very rubbery, which is what happens when things come out of the oven right away. I gently put it on the other side and put a candle on it. And let's see how it comes off now. Actually, the transfer is excellent. So what we're learning is that there's lots of different ways for you to play around with this technique for what works for you. My paper might be a little slightly different than your paper. My oven might be different. The clay brand I get may be different. So if it's not working, just try a different method. So I'm taking a microfiber cloth after and rubbing it just to get all the little paper residue pieces off of it. Look at the detail on that transfer. That came out terrific. But it also warped it as it was cooking. So you have to be ready when you come out of the oven to quickly turn it over and put something heavy on top to gently press it back flat. Let's try this guy. This guy, I cut part of the design out and I just cooked the paper right on top of it because I wanted to see how that came out. Each design that Sharon designed for us works a little bit different depending on the artwork. I found the reds, the flower, and the cardinal to be a little bit more finicky when it came to leaving the ink onto the clay. Now, is that because it's red, or is that because of my printer or my red ink is behaving that way? I don't know. I'm not saying that's going to be your reality, but if you find that you're having issues with a specific one, which I was only having issues from me and my printer with the reds, then cooking it on top is definitely an option, but maybe maybe cutting out as close around it as possible. That way it isn't doing that warping thing we talked about. Now look how clean that transfer is by doing it that way. Very interesting. Results, you play around and it can be, really interesting just to see, once you know the technique, what works best for the paper and everything you have. But one of these ways will work for you, whether it's just tapping and pulling up, tapping and rubbing away, leaving on and baking. You have to see what works for you. So right now we have our baked pieces, and they would be ready if this is all you want to do with them. I would definitely take a piece of sandpaper and sand any kind of edge, or you can take an emery and you can just sand any little bit that needs to be smoothed out. You want to sand it not only to make it smooth, but if you're going to travel along with the second part of this project with me, you're going to want to have a smooth edge. But if you wanted to keep them a bit rustic and exactly how they are, that is completely fine as well. So we learned in this class that you take your clay, you condition your clay, you roll your clay out, you will check it for bubbles, you'll pat your clay, pet your clay. Then you're going to do the transfers. Using the water technique, you'll cut them out. You'll make sure you put holes in them if you're going to hang them. And then once you have a plate of them, you will bake them. Baking is such an important step, and I hope that my baking instructions you will go back and listen to when it's time to do your project. If this is all you want to do, then I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope you will join me again for a very fun clay or paper project. But if you're ready to take these to the next level, then let's go on to the next video.